We are at Rosemary's Pizza, and today we are going to learn about the most essential part of pizza, the dough. So, first of all, thank you for having me here in your beautiful restaurant with your awesome brick oven behind you.
My pleasure.
So most of us don't have a brick oven at home, so we may not be able to get the pizzas exactly the same, but we can all start off with great dough, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, what are the things that you need to get started with dough? Because obviously, it's all about the ingredients.
Absolutely. Our dough is pretty complex in a lot of different ways, but you can go very, very simple. Just one flour, yeast, water, salt, and you're good. There's so many different variations you can do.
Right.
We spent a year and a half more probably really on development of our dough here, but you can keep it as simple as you like. You can use all-purpose flour if you're at home, if that's what you have. You can use bread flour. You can use like pizza flour if you can find it. It's really up to you.
And so really, you're just looking to start with a good flour, and also a fresh flour, right?
Yes.
What do we do to get this dough made?
All right, so we're gonna start with the flours. So we've got our, in this case, we're gonna make just the recipe that we do here. So we've got some 00 pizza flour. We've got some Wild Hive Mills AP flour that's made from soft white winter wheat. We've got some 00 bread flour, so high protein wheat that's been passed through the same sieve that they would pass a pizza flour through. So high protein, it's got the German tack, and this is made from hard spring wheat, hard red spring wheat. So this is all gonna give it a very nutty flavor. So first we're gonna blend the flours, and then we're gonna add our salt. Another important thing when you're making the dough is you never want to blend the salt with your yeast water, because the salt will immediately start to dehydrate the yeast and kill it off, basically. So you're going to mix that with the flour.
What type of salt do you use?
This is just kosher salt. You can use sea salt. You can use like pretty much anything. Iodized salt, probably not so much. Probably kind of leaves a little bit of an aftertaste.
Right.
Kosher salt's fine. Sea salt's fine. The next thing we're gonna add is we're gonna start with some of our water. So I've got the water at actually about 74 degrees, very comfortable temperature, comfortable for the yeast. So we're gonna start by adding just some of the water to the dough and just kind of stirring it in a well and kind of gradually bringing some of the flour in. Once it gets kind of the same consistency or maybe just a little bit looser than our starter, then we're gonna add the starter in. We're just gonna use our hands.
By hand.
So we don't really need to work it all that much. Just so you have like a nice smooth ball, essentially. We're gonna add a little bit more water here.
What should the consistency be? Because so much of this is about the flour, it's about the time, it's about what you're using. So what should you be feeling?
It kind of depends on how you want your dough to come out, or how you want your pizza to come out, or bread, or whatever. If you want it pretty light and airy, probably want to use a little bit more water, because what will happen is that'll create more steam when it bakes and give you a little bit more levity, so to speak. If you want it to come out a little bit more dense, like thinner and crispier, just a little bit less water. So then we'll take this out. Now we can see it in all of its gooey
beautiful glory. Awesome. And so when the dough is done, how long do you let your dough rest?
So here at the restaurant, we let it rest for a day. At home, you can put it in the fridge. If you have a cool spot in your house near an AC, or when it's in the winter time or the fall when it's cooler, you can leave it like near a window.
Right. So
again,
cool,
though,
but not too cool.
Yeah. Too cool is okay. It just goes slower.
It
just takes longer, and it depends how much time you have. If you want it that day, you want to have it just a slight bit warmer. Like again, like mid-70s is ideal.
And how do you cover it? How do you keep it?
I usually just cover it with plastic wrap over the top, lightly oil. So essentially the oil, all it's doing is preventing air to get into the dough. So that's looking pretty smooth. As soon as I stop working it, it kind of springs back to itself. Like we're looking pretty good. So that's pretty much the making the dough. So after we rest it, so I've got a batch over here, essentially looked exactly like that yesterday. You'll see it's kind of smoothed out. It feels pretty soft, like it holds my finger indentations. That holds them too, but it's springing back just because we just finished working it. This one, it's just staying, so it's like nice and relaxed. So then we can basically cut it into pieces and do our thing with it, essentially. So if we were to kind of want it to be perfect, in a perfect world, we'd usually actually, as we portion it, we would kind of turn it into a ball, lightly flour it, turn it into a rough-ish circle, and basically start to shape it into a pizza. You're using the back of your hands essentially to stretch it. You can also do it with a rolling pin, and that's pretty much it. So you can see light through the dough pretty well. We've left a little bit of edge crust on there. It's not a perfect circle, but that's okay. If you're baking at home, You know, I think when I first started doing pizzas at home, I pretty much would just bake them on a sheet tray. I'd crank the oven up as hot as it would get, bake them on a sheet tray. They came out great.
But awesome. But this is where it starts. It's all with the perfect dough. And
That's
now,
it.
let's go make a pizza.
All right, sounds good.
All right. So here we have it. This is what you can do with a glorious piece of dough. Thank you so much for having us here at Rosemary's Pizza. I really appreciate it. And obviously, if you want to make the dough yourself, you can do it at home, or you can always come on in here to Rosemary's Pizza. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.